All right. Hello, everyone, to all 150 people who are here live with us today on a Friday. I have Isaiah here with me. I am Emily. I am the community manager for Designlab. If you are part of our community, I'm sure you have seen my name floating around our Slack space. If you're not and you're thinking about it, you could see my name floating around in the Slack space. But either way, we are here to learn about Isaiah's story. He is an alumni from UX Academy, and he also did attend my group crit sessions back in the day. So have a little bit of a personal connection here, but I see people are already saying hello in the chat, which is amazing. Yes, go Birds. Exactly. My boyfriend's from Philly, so he's a Philly. He's a big deal.
Smart man.
Yeah. But yeah, everyone's saying hello in the chat, which is awesome. If you've been here before, you know the drill. Chat in the chat, questions in the questions tab. When we're about 15 to 20 minutes before the end of the hour, we're going to flip over to Q&A. So just kind of listen, absorb everything. One thing I will note is that everyone's journey is different. So Isaiah's is his own. So it can sound similar to yours. Maybe it's something that you aspire to do. But either way, we're here to share. We're here to learn. We're here to grow, all that fun stuff. If you are also willing, feel free to connect with each other in the chat, throw your LinkedIn info, all that fun stuff. And we will get going. So yeah, like I said, I'm Emily. I am the community manager for Designlab. If you have to hop off, this is recorded. So you will be sent the recording via email. It will also be on our YouTube channel. So do all the fun things on that social media people do. All right. Hello. All right, cool. So Isaiah, I think I already spilled the beans. You're from Delaware, but give us a brief breakdown on who you are, what you're currently doing, and then we'll kind of dive in and learn about your journey.
Yeah, this is cool. This is a little different when you're on the other side now. I'm
I know, right? It's
on
very
the chat.
different.
So what can I say? I'm Isaiah Robinson, recently just been married, happily married now for 15 days. So congrats to me. What else? I went to a traditional 4-year program, did marketing, got involved with a lot of banking and doing a lot of advertising, pretty much data research and analytics. Then at one point in my life, I just was getting frustrated because I couldn't see what was going on in my future, and I was always involved with design and always being digital, inclined with a lot of things. And I decided to take a leap and did my research, found Designlab off of Humble, took the Design 101 first, so make sure that I was able to actually jump in and be able to do online learning. I got a certificate for that for the first year. I took a year off or something because I still wasn't sure myself I wanted to change career paths because it's time and effort and definitely a lot of money on the table. So I was I had to be sure for myself. Then I think a year later, I decided okay, make this jump because still a year later in my career, I was still miserable, not happy. I knew what I wanted to do, so I just had to make that leap of faith and just got involved with Designlab, and so far, I've been very happy and pleased for my my trajectory in life. So yeah.
Nice. So I know you mentioned, you came from a 4-year program, and I know you mentioned to me that you come from marketing. So are there any differences? Are there any similarities between the two? Do you feel because you have a background in marketing that it was a slightly easier transition, or do you feel when you started Designlab that it was still ground zero?
It's somewhat ground zero, but it depends how you you use it. For if you're using analytics and you're doing research, that definitely can apply with the UX aspect of everything. Currently, I work for JP Morgan Chase, and I work for Fulfillment Archive Services. So we do a lot of internal designs for platforms. So we're doing a lot of research, reaching out to a lot of the team members and how they work with certain tools, collect that information, doing the research. So that kind of helps. That my background was marketing, and just So I think that's probably the best way I can explain it. So it did help, but it was still ground zero because if you haven't really pushed your creative muscle as much, this is a whole new world in a way. So.
I remember you saying that when we were in group crits that, I remember visual design was the one area where you're I don't know if I'm doing this right.
No, you're hard on yourself, and if you know you can push yourself, you know your creativity is there. It just takes a while because at the same time it's a muscle, so you got to keep on, like Vincent Van Gogh, Basquiat, all the guys. They started with a line. They weren't perfect designers. They weren't perfect painters and everything. So you just over time it just gets better. So, and I think
I love that. It's like it's like I love how it's like flexing your muscle, right? But it's true. Like,
yeah,
you can only get stronger if you continue to work out, type of thing.
yeah.
So
That's the only way
yeah,
you're UX designer. So, or
yeah.
any
All right.
designer.
Yeah, I totally agree. All right. So in reference to your journey for Designlab, when you were here, like what were your biggest takeaways? Like what was like the most surprising thing you learned? It doesn't have to be about curriculum. It could be even about you. And like, was there anything that you wish like you like could have done differently?
Okay, what was the first
questions at you early?
Okay, what was the first part? I'm sorry.
First one is just I guess like your takeaways, from your UXA journey. Like was with like anything that you like kind of learned that you didn't like really know, or like maybe you thought was there and you're like, oh, like this really brought it to life.
Man, I don't know. It was my takeaway was just I learned from the takeaway that in UX it's different branches. So sometimes you can just be a UX designer, you can be a UI, or you can be a researcher and multiple other categories. It just depends. It definitely, once you're in the job market, they will put you in one category, and you got to try to branch out to all of those to bring it as to I don't know. I'm pretty nervous on here, so I apologize.
No, all good. What about
the takeaway is like it's just like it's different fields within the UX world. So it's not just UX and whatever. It branches out to many other things. And if you like come from a different background, it might be able to help you apply it to what you learn in the program. So
yeah, now you have a lot of supporters in the chat right now. They completely understand. We're all human. We're all here to we're here to chit chat, right? Like, guys, this is Friday, maybe even Saturday for some of you. So like, it's the weekend. We are chill here. So it is all good. So we're going to flip it a little bit. Was there anything that you would have done differently, thinking in hindsight about your UX Academy journey?
I probably wanted, instead of once I took my design 101, I probably went right back into it as soon as possible. I won't say delay verification, whatever, but it was just like, yeah, I think I would just like once I'd done got certificate, I should just enroll into the actual academy program and just hit the ground running. Also, just from my perspective, I wouldn't have started as I forgot what the code. It's the part-time and full-time.
Yes.
I thought I was able to do full-time. First time around, I learned very quickly that life will take over. So I would have started first time around part-time, then try to go full force because I thought like if I get it done faster, I can start getting the job market and find a job. That will come in due time. So take your time. I would have took my time and not try to rush it because it's a lot of information to obtain and work with like mentors like the best. Like I adopt you as one of my mentors next to Karen and Bob. So it was like, yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I completely relate. I mean, I worked full time while I went through the program. I don't know if you had worked during, but I know like we also have folks who work full time and do the program full time. So for those folks who did it, like, and are maybe doing it now, if you're here, like, major kudos to you. Like seriously, like
more power to you. I'm not.
Yeah, the full-time track it really is. It's a lot. Like, we're not going to sit here and, sugarcoat it and everything. Like if you're going to come in full time, like be ready to dedicate that time because I'm sure like, as a student, right? Like the one thing that I hear a lot from students and that's something I experienced myself as a student, I'm sure you have, is that we didn't expect to actually iterate so much and have so many versions of the work that we did, right? We just assumed we'll come in, we'll do the work, do the assignments, turn it in and like be done with it. It's like, no, like, so when you're talking about like when you're talking about mentorship, right? It's like, it really is that extra layer of someone saying, let's slow down a little bit. Like, let's actually like analyze what we're doing here. And like, let's figure out if like you're on the right path because like, it really is important in this field. And I'm sure you're experiencing this now. It's like, no matter how established anything is, it still takes time, and that you have to kind of give yourself a little bit of grace and understanding that like you're not going to get it perfect from the get-go. And I think that's what a lot of us assume, right?
Yeah, it is. You think you're, or maybe because I can do this, and you just had that mentality because you want to do good. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's like it will kick your butt and show you like, okay, you need to take some time to actually like learn trying to do and accomplish. So yeah.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so let's kind of like talk about the end of your journey. So because everyone here, I know, like I seems like there's a lot of foundation students here, lots of folks who are in UXA. So everyone wants to know capstone projects, like the projects that mean not mean the most, but are the ones that usually are the ones on your portfolio, right? Like, so what was your process, or I guess, how did you go about choosing what your capstone projects were? I remember your project, so I'm keen to hear this.
Man, I don't know. Like for the capstone projects, at first, like for me, I wanted to like push my creativity. I wanted to push like my research aspect. I wanted to push something like at least come up with like almost a business plan or like a business idea. So like I want to talk to my friends, and I talk to uh, people and like hear what like ideas like of apps or websites they would love to have or things they would like to come up with. And one of my friends that I was talking to came up with a party store slash find discount liquors, but also help you organize like party function with alcohol, I guess, and play with games and
I
everything.
totally remember this project.
So that was like really cool because like doing a research aspect and finding how like how you're not allowed to promote certain alcohol, or like depends on your state that you can't do promotions, or also like you always have to have a disclaimer and let people know that if you have some type of alcohol issues that you have that hotline ready for them. So like just doing the ins and outs and doing the research and then applying that into an app and trying to have fun with it and try to be creative, because my whole goal was just to try something different that wasn't typical as one of the traditional, like, because I think it's I forgot some of the cohorts, but I think it was like a Chase one, a DoorDash one, and everything else. So I just wanted to push my creativity to a certain level to see what I was able to accomplish. Then share it to people and get people's feedback and take some of their ideas and change it and iterate it and just making edits and doing it all over again. So yeah.
Do you feel that because you went that route, like you mentioned, like you want to have fun with your capstones, right? Because at the end of the day, you're still going to pour in a lot of time doing these, like a good 80 hours for part-time folks, 40 for I think it's 80 for across the board, but the amount of time you get is different. But I guess, like, do you think that helped you in terms of when you started applying for jobs, it gave you a little bit more confidence in speaking about your work? Because, I know that there's that concern of like, well, they know that this isn't like truly a real project, but do you find like because you have a personal connection, it made it that much easier to interview with those projects?
Definitely so. Yeah. And I think, it shows like you have a connection with your project. And also at the end of the day, it's not fair to you or to the, I guess, to students that if they just want to do like what they're told to be what they're told on the projects, they'll do it. But to me, and it shouldn't be for an employer like, oh, this is something you came from a cohort, or you came from, this is something I've seen before. That's not the point. It's like if you put the effort and time and actually put your dedication, you put your creativity spin to it, and just like articulate why you made decisions and why you went this directions, it should be perfectly fine. But I just know you are gonna find those people that just want to be buttholes and don't want to like, I seen this from someone else from another prospect. So it just depends. But I think if you try something new and try creativity, it does give you ownership of like of your design and everything. So
yeah, I love that. because I know, and the concern is real, right? It's valid because, like you said, like there are just some people who are just going to be completely unreasonable with their expectations and all that fun stuff. But I completely agree. As someone who is a career switcher, also a UX designer, also a mentor, like it really does. It makes way more of an impact that you come off a lot more passionate about your work and like why you did what you did, and be able to explain that, right? At the end of the day, people would just want to know your process and how you work and how you are as a person, right? Like, and if you can apply that consistently and talk about it confidently as you can, right? Because especially in the beginning, like people will see it. Like, I think that's like the one beauty about this industry is that people do appreciate passion. Like, they don't want you to just tick off the boxes. Like, they really want you to be like, okay, you are a user experience designer, but can you actually empathize with your user? Because I think like, you know, we say empathy, but like, what does it actually mean, right? It's like, we probably are like, well, we want to be able to like step into their shoes. We want to be able to say like, no, like confidently, like, no, this is how this user would feel if I designed this in a certain way. Like, if I were that user, I would be so upset, or like, I would think that this is great, right? So yeah, no,
Research
I love that.
I'll always say that research is your friend.
Yes. And I know, right? Like, I'm sure even you as a student, right? You think about research and you're like, oh God, I have to do research. Like, I have to go talk to people. I have to ask them like questions. Like, they're not going to understand what I'm doing. Like, at the end of the day, right? When you go buy things at Best Buy, CVS, you know, the long receipts you get with like, fill out the survey. Like, there's a purpose for those surveys. They're not just doing it to be annoying. Like, there actually is a reason for those surveys. So now that we're on the other side of the railroad tracks, I feel like I have a little bit of appreciation and understanding for why surveys are sent out now versus like, oh, exactly. Trying to waste my time.
And they're kind of fun to build them out sometimes. So.
Yeah, right. Okay, so we're gonna take a question from Q&A because I think this is very relevant and a good like pivot point for us to like talk about where you are now. But we have a question about our favorite topic, everyone: imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome is so fun, right? Not fun at all. But this one's from Irene. After completing UX Academy and applying for jobs, did you feel any sense of imposter syndrome? And if yes, how did you grapple with that going into the industry? Because guys, let's be real. It doesn't go away. It doesn't go away.
It sucks. It doesn't go away. Sometimes I still have it. And definitely, like, I was working, my first real job at Designlab was working with Amtrak. And when you're working with people that been UX designers, or they traditionally went to a traditional school and became designers, and you see how like their thought process and how it was, it's there. And I think how I just pushed through it because I talked to one of the mentors that I had previously, and also talked to my boss at the time, and just let him know that, okay, these are the issues I was having. And like, and something, if you're lucky enough, you'll get a mentor or a boss that lets you know, okay, it's going to take time to be where you want to be. Like, you're not going to be the perfect person, and your design is not always going to be perfect first time around. And I think that was my issue, because I always want to make sure when I created something and I had to present to the team that, one, I knew what the hell I was talking about, two, that it looks good, because you don't want to sound like you don't want your design, you're hard on your work, and you don't want people to be like, oh man, this is terrible, why are you here? And that's not the case. Like, everybody's on a team, they want you to do good, and getting their feedback is always helpful, because all it does is going to make you better. And eventually, you know we're going to talk about, how you're going to design, you're going to have a thought process, whole design process. So the imposter syndrome is always going to be there. So it's just, you just got to power through and just get it done, best way I can put it. So yeah, hope that makes sense. So
yeah, no, I mean, my mentor, I probably shouldn't say this, but I mean, honestly, like what my mentor told me may sound like bad advice to others, but it's actually what got me through that kind of like first initial hump of imposter syndrome. And like I said, it's still there. It's still very real. But my mentor just told me to fake it. They're like, because at some point, when you keep faking it, right? You fake it till you make it. Like, the more you do it, it's really more that like you're doing it for yourself. You basically have to fake it until you believe it yourself, that like, in your heart that you know what you're doing, right?
Yeah,
so
you got hired. Like, they hired you for something. It's not like, they didn't think you were able to do it, they wouldn't have hired you. So
yes, exactly.
They hire you. So
exactly, right? Like, they saw something in you. So like, and then like you said, like your next worry is like, well, am I going to do a good job on the job? Like, am I going to fail them immediately? But like, at the end of the day, employers know, like when they hire someone, they know what they're walking into, similar to like, you know what you're walking into, right?
Yep.
You may feel like you have to walk in, talk a big talk, play a big game, but like, honestly, like you don't have to. And I think like that's probably one of my joys of this industry. I don't know if it's the same for you, but like people and companies who do genuinely value UX design, like they actually don't expect perfection, but they expect things to be well thought out. They expect you to ask questions and like be curious, but like they certainly don't expect the world from you from the get-go.
Yeah, that's very true. And like you say, it's some places that don't understand they don't understand UX. Some places, but if you have a well-defined company and like a well versed, yes, I think they understand. They understand. Okay, as long as you have a thought, a good reason why you make the decision. So yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. Well, I guess that's actually a really good pivot point, because I know we were kind of going to talk about like, when you're on the job hunt, right? You see all these roles that are listed, you read through a bunch of job descriptions, they all are hiring for the same title, but I'm sure you've noticed all these job descriptions like say either all the same thing or they all say completely different things,
Yeah.
right? So I want to jump into that. What's your advice for folks who are probably, going to be starting the job hunt soon, or maybe you're on the job hunt now? What's your advice for like researching and like understanding what the roles are asking for?
Oh man. Well, okay. The first time around, I'm just going to tell you what I was doing the first time. Every job that said UX or UX researcher or UI, I just applied for it. Like, even though I was still green behind the ears, I just needed to start the process of actually applying for jobs. And once I start getting more comfortable with the cohorts and working on my projects, and people start calling for interviews, this is when your mentor can come and play. You can talk to your mentor like, "Hey, I have an interview coming soon, and can you help me prep for it?" You might not even get the job, but it's just like it's a good way to just start the process, understand what's the questions going to be thrown, if they're going to ask you to do some type of take-home projects. But that's when I was first in the beginning. But when you start getting involved with the whole interview process or getting actual jobs, you kind of want to start reading the job description a little bit more clear, because some companies now are like, they want you to do everything under the sun just with the UX title, but you're being a project manager, you're being an analyst, you're doing research, you're doing a UI. And it's not a lot of, they don't really break it up. So they just put you can sometimes you be the only UX designer on the team, and you're not even working with nobody else, no mentor above you. They just want you to produce. And so there are some of the jobs you have to really look out for, and some of the red flags based off your interviews or your meetings with people. But it's like, I don't know, like you really just got to watch out the job descriptions. And if you really feel comfortable, if it says something like you're not really comfortable, like adding, like you have to be UX designer, but also a project manager, and you don't like wanting to be a project manager because you came from that before, just don't apply for it. Or if you think that if you want to add like research based onto there, they also want you to be a designer, but you're doing more research. It's just like depends what's your career path. If you want to start doing more research, it's just kind of like you just got to read the job description as best as possible, and whatever you're comfortable with, apply for them. But if it's like really won't know till you actually have that interview, and you just got to ask every question, break it down, what they're actually not saying to you, and I took a position that I was doing everything under the sun, and yeah, it wasn't fun. So yeah. So hopefully I said, but sorry.
No, that was perfect. And I mean,
I'm a little more comfortable talking about the whole career path, because it's a struggle, and it can be brutal out there, and it's not fun, but you have to get your feet wet so that you get used to talking to interviewers and what they're asking for, because majority of the time, honestly, they don't know what they really want. So you have to be able to like home in what you really want, and hopefully they understand like, okay, you bring it, you can be an asset. And if you want to be the only designer, that gives you a lot of free way, but at the same time, it's a lot of responsibility coming from a Designlab type organization. So
have you ever like applied for a job and then got called back for interviews, but you were kind of iffy on it, like from the get-go? Like you read the job description, you're like, I think this will be okay, but maybe they asked for too much in the job description. Like, did you go through the interview to just find out to get clarity, or
yeah,
like, okay,
a lot. Definitely like you don't have this like I said, like, you can just do for me. I have a love hate with employers because I always tell people like you apply for a job, you guys sometimes treat them how they would treat you. Sometimes they will have no problem letting you go if they need to because of budget or whatever. And sometimes you gotta have. For me, that's how the mindset to have sometimes when I'm working with definitely when I was in the marketing agencies. You have to have that mindset that like, okay, I'm a business. I know what I bring, but if something better comes along, I should be loyal to you or should I be loyal to myself? Like, this is my life. I need to do what's best for me. Because at the end of the day, companies will let you go just off of budget or whatever. So that's just my philosophy of how I think about when it comes to job and career paths. But don't don't listen to me, guys. Just telling you what I do. So
no, I mean that I love that call out. And I mean, on like, there are just so many people who, especially today, right? Like if anyone has heard about, the great resignation happening, like people are doing it because now people are finally getting, not getting, but like people are finally standing up for themselves and saying like, no, like I need to put myself first. Right. And like, I feel like it is going to get to the point where companies, like, you can dig your heels into the ground, but those companies that do, like, I'm sorry, like in my viewpoint, like probably a good handful of them will suffer. They will lose a lot of their workforce because like people are just realizing that like they want to be at home or they want to be with their kids. Like they don't mind having to juggle their normal responsibilities, but they want to kind of do it on their own terms, So like, I think when we talk about the job interview and, the hurt that you feel when you get a rejection, right? Like we always like to remind people that when you get a rejection, it's likely not about you, right? Like you can think it's about you because like in your mind, like, oh, I wasn't a good fit, but like in their mind, you're not a good fit but like, it's not about you. It's about what is a good fit for their company. So like you are, it is not a good fit, but it's just seeing it from two completely different viewpoints. So similar to what you're saying, right? Like, am I going to be loyal to you, the company, or am I going to be loyal to myself? I think it's kind of the same thing.
Yeah. But also at the same time, if you feel rejection, you can always reach out to them. For me, if I got rejected, I usually reach out to them like, hey, was it anything from my portfolio or things I was discussing or something? But they usually come back and say it was somebody, more experienced or something like that. And you just take it as is. Like, eventually you'll get to that level that is tails be the other way around that, okay, you're getting hired and the person that was in your shoes is getting the same letter back. So just, give and take, but it's,
always ask for feedback. Always ask for feedback.
Always. Some people might give it to you, some people don't. The people that give it to you, I say keep those in contact and always reach out to them and later on with your portfolio and let them know like, oh, you made some updates and you took their recommendation so that they know that, oh, you do listen and you do follow directions. So that's always another approach when you take rejections and they give you feedback. So
exactly. I think the one thing I like to tell my students too is that a rejection, like I said, as much as it hurts, right? Like I think it's worse to not hear back from someone than it is to just get a final rejection, and just saying like reading that line that says, unfortunately you're not a good fit. Like, yes, it does hurt, but like, think about it as like someone actually took the time to look at your application. They took the time to like, just even send you a canned response, but that certainly is much better. Cause then you have that like closure in your mind. That's like, all right, well, that's fine. I'll just move on. But like, if they don't respond back, it's like the worst feeling. That's like, I think worse than being rejected.
It is.
All right. So we have burning questions in the questions tab because everyone wants to know about your life as a UX designer at JP Morgan Chase because it is such a large organization. And prior to this, you were at Amtrak. So Amtrak's still pretty large, but I cannot imagine that they are larger than JP Morgan because JP Morgan is huge. But like, what's your day-to-day like today? Like, I know you mentioned that you work on design systems, you focus on, the internal tools, which I personally love, I could have a conversation with you about that like separately, because I think that it is a very forgotten part of the tech world. We always think about digital design and apps and what is the most fancy and pretty and, like flashy, but guys, like internal tools are, they still need UX love. They like think about tools that that help people get the job done, right? Like how often has anyone here like in our audience, like how often are you on a job where you have tools that just don't do the job for you? That doesn't help your productivity. So I'm very happy that you're doing that. But yeah, what's your day-to-day like?
Oh man, that is so true, because it's the stuff that you guys see on apps like on Chase or JP Morgan apps, like that's the beautiful side stuff, that that's customer facing. That's the stuff that they want you to see. Stuff that for internal tools, it's not pretty. Look, they're not pretty at all. But for my day to day, it's a lot of meetings. Like I'm gonna have to be honest. Like when I first thought I was going to be a designer, I thought I was going to be designing every day, and I'll be listening and like, okay, I gotta have an idea, and I can create this, and this is my presentation. No, it's a lot of meetings of the process of how things should look. Then it was like, okay, we come up with a discoveries, like what's the discovery of the project? Why we're trying to fix this tool, and what's going on, and like then we're like, okay, you start the process, like get back to the designing part. Like, okay, then you put it on pause because you have to go back to the end of the research aspect. So that's my day to day. I'll say I don't even know how to put it. It's just like I do more research and more meetings than actual design at the moment. But when we actually get like a nice flow and everybody can agree with the book of work, and that okay, everybody's on the same page, everybody knows what their job responsibility is, that's when the fun comes in for me, so I can actually start designing for the teams. We have a design system. Currently right now we're trying to we're redesigning everything within the organization. So right now I'm doing things for collections. And the stuff that's in collections is outdated, hasn't been updated since 2010. So like I'm going through our design system, what components will work, what components I have to break and fix and create a new way for our users to use, just because the design system that we already have is built out, but it might not work properly what's for the organization that I'm working for. So it's up to me to do like the research, break it, redesign it if I have to redesign it, or come up with another component. And if the component is needed, is necessary for that job, it's up to me to create a proposal and explain reason why this is decisions. I'm using this approach and why did I design it this way, so that once it gets approved, that we can start using it down the streamline of other products within the organization. So it's just, that's pretty much my day to day. It's not really fun, but when you be able to get the chance to design, it becomes fun because, so.
I love what you're describing is basically like UX Academy. Like I think the one thing, right? Like, and I'm sure you felt this, I certainly felt this, like when students hit the ground running in phase one, like you're so excited and you're just like ready to do all the things and you want to work on your portfolio on like day one. And then you quickly learn 2 weeks later that like, I really need to slow down. Like I really need to like focus on, the research that I'm really dreading doing and stuff. And like, I know you just mentioned, you spend a lot of time doing research, but you understand that it's part of the process. It is part of the process because it has to inform your work. I know that a few people in the chat earlier mentioned, like research is hard. It is very hard for a lot of reasons. Yeah, right.
And it's really hard, and definitely when you work on a company like such as Chase, like they put so much money in their products, like they're not trying to waste their money. So if you can validate the reasons why you're doing certain things, is because the research goes along with it and supports your design system or design product. It's for the business, and at the end of the day, because it's a business, and they just don't want you to design just for the heck of it. They want you to have reasons why and have like the research behind it, because they're using a lot of money on these products. So that's just for this organization. Like, it might be different for like startups and everything else, but at the end of the day, startups do want research because it helps. It sucks. I'm not gonna lie. Research is not fun sometimes. It does help helps to support your design system, your design decision. So
Yep, exactly. I think that's probably the one thing is, oftentimes, right, it's like that interview question, right? Like, how do you explain UX design, right? Like, what's the difference between UX and UI and all that fun stuff? I don't know, like, if either at Amtrak or Chase, like, do you feel like anyone kind of jumbles the two together or just thinks that one equals the other? Like, have you ever had to explain it to someone and say, like, listen, I know it sounds similar, but it's actually not?
Yeah, it depends. If you work with other organizations, like within Chase, they call it other organizations. So like other organizations, they think it's the same thing. So you really have to like describe the difference. And I always tell people, hope I can remember how I use this analogy, that it was like, how did I use this analogy? It was like your parents is the UX or is the UI. They created you and you are the UX. They build you with all this information. They gave you this knowledge of growing up, and it's up to you to base like how you groom yourself and how you carry yourself in the world, like how you dress, how you communicate with one another. That's your UI. And just like, but the experience is what they build into you, and what you along the line, what you start getting off as a human being, as an adult. Like, this is my experience. So I kind of like try to dress it up something fancy. I probably said it better when I first came up with it, but I'm trying to remember. I haven't used it in a while, so apologize, guys. But around that line.
I love that. That's probably the most wholesome way I've ever heard anyone try to explain UX and UI, because like I usually, it's the normal, like, okay, like how do I break this down, right? But like I love it because yours is so much more relatable and understandable to folks who have zero understanding of what UX is. So it's kind of like that nature versus nurture type of thing.
Also, that's speaking that you get that question a lot. So I would admit to people, try to be creative with that question. That's the reason why I start using it, or try to come up with something different, because the people always, that's one of the like tricky questions people always ask you, what's the difference between UX and UI? And you like, one's color and one's like, how it works. And they'd be like, that's okay, but that's it. So just change it up a little bit, get tricky with it, and it might help you. So that's all.
Yeah, no, oh my God, that's awesome. I guess on the topic of interview questions, because we did have a few of these questions in the questions tab. So, there's that normal one, right? Like, what's the difference between UX and UI? What other interview questions have you come across like in your job hunt in the past?
Oh man, I wish I had wrote these down. Man, I don't have that. Oof.
Or how about let's flip it. If you were going to interview a UX designer, like coming up, like in the near, like next 2 weeks, like, and you are part of the interview panel now, you're on the other side of the table. What questions would you ask based on your experience?
Oh man, that's another good one. One, it definitely would be like what's your design process? That, man, these are, oh man.
Okay, wait, let's stay on that one, right? Because that is a very common question, right? What is your design process? And depending on if you choose to generalize, right, doing both UX and UI, like you want to be a generalist or you want to be a specialist, like your answer is going to be different, right? So in terms of, like, let's say you ask that question, and let's say the person you're hiring is going to be a hybrid. They're going to be a generalist, or you are going to be a UX and UI designer. What would you expect them to say, and what are you looking for?
For me, it's just like, I don't care for the right answer. I don't, like, it can be gutter, dirty, whatever you want to say. Look, I just want to hear how you just speak about it, and if you don't even get to A or B or C, I just want to hear it. So that lets me know that you're actually doing your best to think about it. Because before I worked for, like, honestly, my most easiest interview was JP Morgan Chase. It was more laid back. They kind of just want to know who I was as a person. and you might be lucky to get those type of interviews. However, when I was working for Amtrak was a different beast. It was like asking questions like, if you had if you have two project managers that's on two different pages, but they want the same results, like, what do you do? Like, how do you handle when you have people with two different decisions or make different decision makings? Like, how do you handle that? Or like, if you have a design, like if you have research and you have this information and you know this is the right information, but somebody that didn't do no research, didn't do nothing with your design, they just the person that makes the yes or no answers, and they tell you, no, this is the right way. How do you conduct yourself? Like, how do you actually answer and let them know that your way is, I won't say the right way, but your way will validate because you did the research behind it. Just because they say yes or no to the project and move things along and make sure the budget is okay, don't mean that they, or God or whatever, or their words is Bible. Like, they don't know nothing. You're the one you're the one that's the designer. You've been hired. You're the one supposed to do the research. You're the one that been doing all the heavy lifting. You just need to make sure that you articulate and stay strong with your decisions, why your design is the right approach for that project. Because it's going to be times when managers or whomever are going to say, no, this is not the way I want to go. And you got to really sometimes argue why this is the best approach. So I hope that kind of answers your question. I think I went somewhere. I was just reliving.
No. I think it was great. It was great. And honestly, I think
things that happened in my past at jobs. So
it's been a while. It's okay. No, I think folks in the chat, they love your response mainly because, right, like we said earlier, it's not about ticking the boxes, right? Like, don't just give an answer that you know someone wants to hear. And if you ever feel like that's how it is, especially in a UX interview, personally, I think that's a red flag, because then that tells me that they don't actually know what they're looking for and that they don't understand the true, like, the inside, like the core of UX. Like, it has, like, if you want to break it down between like UX and UI, like they really are only thinking about like what they can see versus like what are all the innards that are going behind what you can see. So, right, like a great car, like if you want to use a car for an example, it can look pretty, but if it's not built correctly, it's not built well, it's not well thought out, even down to like the interior of the car. Are you going to enjoy yourself in that car? Probably not. So, all right. Other question related to interviews, because that seems to be the hot topic in the questions tab. Did you go through any design challenges or like whiteboard challenges when you were doing your interviews?
Yeah. I had to redesign a whole pharmaceutical website. That was pretty tough because like you had to, like, you usually get like less than 24 hours to design something like I don't know, like, okay, so depends where you're from and depends like what location. If you're working for, like, for my side, I live on the East Coast. There's a lot of pharmaceutical companies or a lot of bank companies on this side. And if you apply for certain companies, like agencies, a lot of agencies have accounts with healthcare sector, or they might have some type of account with maybe a financial company or something. But they usually try and give you one of their projects they have done in the past, and to see how you come up with a different approach of recent projects they have worked on in the past. And they will probably like mess up a website, give you a trashy website on purpose, and you have to redesign it and give them a reason why you decide to make this approach. Like, why did you put this button here? Why did you make this button this color? Why did you have this call out on this top of the page instead of on the side? Or just doing small things like that. Yeah, I haven't had too many whiteboard projects though. Thank God.
Yeah, I know. I haven't either, but I'm sure we know, right? Like the purpose that we've been talking about a lot is like, it's really just, number one, a way for them to get to know you as a person, right? For them to understand how you process your thoughts out loud. Because like I did a live whiteboard challenge where basically they just told me the problem. I had that design lead in the room with me, and he's like, you can ask questions as you go, but here's where we're going to start. And then from there, it's like one of those like games where you play with your friends. You're like, we're going to start with a circle, and then we're going to pass it on, and someone's going to add something to it, right? So we kind of played one of those games. But like, I mean, at the end of the day, I feel like we're both like saying like, these whiteboard challenges really has nothing to do with design at all. Like the actual designing, it's about your process.
Yeah, it's your process and just why. That's it. Like, why did you just do that? And that's it. If you can explain your reasons, you're pretty much getting money, honestly. But that's just,
Yep. This one may be a little bit of food for thought, because I feel like I've never gone through this, but I've certainly heard kind of issues around this, but maybe we'll take your thoughts on it. Like, I'm sure you've heard of like companies who do whiteboard challenges or design challenges, and they're basically using the prompt that they're using is actually a feature that they're thinking about building. So they're kind of using these interviews as a way to get ideas. Like, what are your thoughts about that? Number one. And then like, in terms of if you were faced with something like that, like how would you approach it, knowing what you know now?
Oh man. So they were
all the good
so just make sure you said if they're giving you a project, if a company is working on a project and they're thinking about launching a new.
Yeah, like let's say like, Chase wanted, like I'm to use Chase like for as an example, right? Like let's say they wanted to add a new feature to their app because they've been hearing it a lot from their users and such, but they don't really know how to approach it, right? So they're like, we don't know if our team can handle it, but we probably need a new designer. So guess what? We're just going to use this as the prompt for the design challenge. Sounds shady, right? Like we talk about it, like it's a little bit shady.
Oh man, I hope I answered this question right. How would I go about that? I think I think that's the time you could just be creative. Like you could just, like, it's no wrong answer or anything wrong. You just pretty much throw everything to the wall and see if it fits, and just be able to articulate why you made that decision. Like, I don't know. Like, oh, that's a good question. Like, I never had that.
Would you feel like, and the reason, so the path that this has gone down in terms of like it going badly is that like folks who have told their horror stories, they've gone through that scenario we just painted, that they're interviewing, they're given a design challenge. It ends up being a challenge, a prompt really based on a feature that the company's thinking about. And then they get a rejection letter. They're told, sorry, you're not a fit or whatever. But then it's been found out that the company actually used that person's work from the design challenge and used that to guide their actual features. So really it's like the issue with that in the world is that like they're getting free work done for,
You know what?
interviews.
I think it just triggered a memory. Sorry about. I think that has happened to me.
Tell us about it.
I am trying to remember what was the project, because I did, when I was applying for jobs, I did try to take on like freelance work on them sites and see. And sometimes you might be lucky, and somebody might just give you an opportunity to do stuff like that. And this was a job. This is a project I didn't even freelance. It was a company called Capital something. They did like, their whole gist of their app was finding people to be connected with like their state representatives, who's the Senate, who's running the local government. And they were like they launched like a couple years ago, and I was looking at their app and I saw things there that I feel like I could change and be different. And this is before I actually got involved with UX design, because I was trying to teach myself before I got classical training through UX design. Designlab. And some of the features on there that I was designing on there, and I was like, oh no, this is, I was trying to like get a job at the same time. I made a design system. I made suggestions of how certain things should look and feel, and I submitted an email to one of the designers or one of the owners, and let them know like, hey, this is what I came across from your app, and this is what I discovered, blah blah blah. And nothing ever happened. Then like a year later, some of the features that I came up with was in the app. Like how I made some of the icons look, how I made some of the like some of the state representative profiles stand out a little bit more, and how it'd be distinguished from one another based off their party colors. Like, because I think Democrats are blue and Republicans are red. I don't know. I'm an independent. I don't know. But so and I remember like I came up with that system, and I remember like I was like, I wonder how that app is doing. And I remember when I downloaded it, I said, oh shoot, these are some of the components or some of the features that I designed. So that was it. I just wanted to share that. But so how I feel about it, it it's I guess since I never got a response, it didn't really bother me. But when I saw it, that I actually saw what actually happened, like, it kind of did bother me. Like, oh, this is one of my ideas. I would like to get credit, but now I use that as a part of my portfolio to just show like what I did previously and what they did to their updates. So it just shows that like, okay, I reached out to them just because I wanted to work with them, but then nothing happened. But I could tell they use some of my components. So, and you can use that at your advantage to your employers or your possible employers. Let them know like, okay, you try your best to be innovate for other things for other people as much as possible, and you try to apply those, and they can like, okay, I see that you're always thinking about changing or trying to be innovative for people, or always trying to be innovative, because sometimes, yeah, you really don't like where I'm at now. It's like innovation is kind of low key because it's a big company, so
it's hard to be innovative when you have a very established company that actually has design processes, design systems, and stuff, because one change cascades through like a billion other things, and if one thing goes wrong, it's same as development. One thing goes wrong, everything breaks. So yeah, no, I love that. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I said that, but of course, it just triggered a memory when you start talking. I was like, oh, old age. What can I say? So.
No, like, so I mean, I was just gonna say what two folks in the chat just said. Like, you flip the script. Like, I think like the way I saw it, right? You flip the script on them. You're like, oh, well, sucks to be you, because now I'm gonna say like I actually did some of that work because you took it. But to me, it also felt like it's almost like you had to flip the script for yourself to just be okay with it, because at the end of the day,
yeah,
right, like what can you do about it? Because now I feel like in hindsight, you probably like you now know better. Like you now know like, okay, if I'm gonna approach someone about work, maybe I won't actually tell them and show them what I'm thinking. Like I want to start the conversation first, right? Like, yeah, I love that. All right, so we are gonna wrap up soon, but I believe I'm gonna do two questions. So one of them is something that you and I talked about before we got started, and it is based on your comfort level if you would like to talk about it. But David's asking, how was your experience interviewing and working in this industry as a person of color? Like, did you face anything that just was not great? Any adversity, any discrimination, stuff like that? And if you have, like, what's your advice for folks, entering that as a person of color?
Yeah. Well, one, it's for a person African descent. It's not many UX designers that are African American or African in the industry a little bit, and you can kind of see that based off of some designs. But like I never like let that like bother me, because like I was telling Emily earlier, like I never been like pretty much through my career of being in the workforce, definitely in marketing and UX, I always been hired by a person of color. Because I just think from my experience, it's not because like, oh, if you can do the job, we're going to hire you because of it. It's more like they want to get to know you first and know like, okay, this is how you're passionate about certain things, and you can do the job as well, but they want to know you as a personal level and get to know you. And I think that's from my experience, like that's how I usually got my jobs, because it's just like they just didn't want somebody here just to just collect seat and just do the job. They want to know somebody can have a conversation with and shoot the crap with. Sorry, I don't want to curse, but and have drinks with, or somebody they just I don't know. I don't know. Like it sucks sometimes, because like when I always try to reach out to people, like I don't know. I got more diversity when I started doing Designlab. I saw more diversity. Definitely with my mentors. Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. Like I don't know how to answer that. It's tough, because sometimes there's not many out there, and you just can't be discouraged. Sometimes you just got to be the person to do it. But yeah, that's the best way I can put it. Yeah, but like I don't know how to feel because I've been hired by every person I've been hired by has been a minority. So and
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like your response is similar to mine. Like, I've definitely interviewed with all types of people, but I think at least the way I approach interviews regardless is like, it really, right. It shouldn't matter. Like
It should.
it shouldn't matter, right? It shouldn't matter what your background is. It shouldn't matter like how you identify, whatever it is. Like to me, what matters more is that, that I can prove that I can do the job, right? And that, like you said, like make that kind of connection with people. And if it doesn't fit that way because the other things tend to matter, then it's almost like a blessing in disguise. Like I don't want that to work out because then like other things will just kind of snowball and escalate in ways that it shouldn't. So, I think.
Sorry to cut you off real quick.
No, go ahead.
But I know also I really think when it comes to design or any other aspect of any job, they do need to have minorities there in the room to speak because like I mentioned when I was trying to get my point, that I have been in rooms that I've seen that if I wasn't in that room, the design direction would have went a totally different direction. Like I said, I worked for companies that work doing stuff like pharmaceuticals, and it was a thing called prep and prep, pep and pep, pep, whatever it's called, prep and pep, whatever. And they were trying to target, and since this helped me in my marketing background, they were trying to target for more minorities to take a type of medicine for, I guess, to prevent AIDS spread or whatever. I can't remember how it is. So sorry, the terminology, whatever. But based off how they were using some of the stock photos were very stereotypical of African Americans, Latinos. They look like they look stereotypical of people that are in the gay community. And I felt that when I needed to speak up because like not everyone, people that are in that community don't look like this. They don't always look like that. So I really made sure that when we designed the website that they need to be more diverse with the imagery and not be so stereotypical in trying to portray how a person of color, if that's the main target, it looks if they're in that community. So I think it really helps to be in those conversations, and if you can convey that in meetings or your interviews, it definitely comes across. It helps a lot because it does get dicey sometimes with people's decision making because they see one side, they don't really see your side sometimes. So.
No, I love that. I love that because the way I'm kind of like framing that, right? Like as a whole is like, yes, you could be the only person of color in a room, but don't feel like your voice doesn't matter because like you said, right? Like they don't know what they don't know. They don't see what they don't see. And like, it takes someone with that viewpoint to like bring it to life and like to put it in front of them. And it's what they do with that actually like informs how you feel about it later on,
Yeah. I'm not part of that in the gay community, but I know friends are. And I know that how they are dressed or how they are their day to day. So like if you could just speak up and be an ally from whatever side, just have common sense. Like that doesn't look right. You just speak up and let it know. And they might get mad, they might fire you, but at least you know that you did the right thing. So
yeah, like you and I talked about, right? Like empathy literally, like it should drive like empathy and research. Everyone, if you're going to take away anything from this conversation, empathy and research. Those are like the two things that like, honestly, like I feel like those are the two things that really make or break you as an impactful UX designer. Like, it has nothing to do with design because like I said, right? Like, don't just think about ticking the boxes. Like anyone can learn a tool, anyone can learn Figma, anyone can learn how to like talk the talk, but it's what you do with that. Right? It's what you do with that. How do you make your presence known through what you can do?
Yep.
Yes. Okay. All right. So lastly, before we wrap up for the last minute, so what is your kind of last piece of advice to anyone who is thinking about entering UX design? Because we did have a question in the questions tab about, how does someone know whether or not they're a fit? So I think I'm just going to flip it and say, like, what's your advice for someone if they're thinking about it? Like, what should they think about when they are trying to figure out if this is the right fit or not?
For me, I'll probably say just think about long term. If if write it down. What's your goals? If you want to have a family in a certain amount of time, or having some type of income at a certain amount of age, or something, just write it down. Changing your career path. It's not fun. It's you pay for all this money to go to a 4-year traditional school, and you do come to a point like I'm miserable. I'm not happy. And for me, I was like, I wasn't happy. I was really like, I didn't like my future. I always loved design. I always loved like everything digital. So I was like, it felt for me, it was a good fit. But you just have to do it. And I know sometimes that money can be an issue. If you can get a loan, if not, come out of pocket. It sucks. I know. Trust me. I know. I'm still paying it. But like, you just have to do it. Just, I don't know. There's no other way to put it. Like you just gotta make the jump. It's just really up to you. Like at the end of the day, like if you feel like where you're at now, career wise, is efficient for you, okay. But if you really deep down in your heart and soul that you know, like in 5 years or 2 years, like this is just not for me. Just make the transition. It's gonna pan out really well. Like for me, like I'm very happy that I went this approach. It took for a while for me to do that because like I was just being hesitant of like oh, do I really want to do this? Do I want to really take a loan out and do this? And at the end of the day, it eventually will pay. Like, you know, once you get a decent job, the loan will pay for itself, whatever. And it's just, yeah, like I really think just go for it. Like, don't hesitate. If you really deep down inside and really do some soul searching, you really think this is the approach, do it. Because, yeah, like if I didn't like was second guess myself, I would have been probably 10 times farther than my career that I am now. But yeah.
Yeah.
But no. I'm good in my career though, so I'm happy.
Good. That is what we're hoping for. And I will kind of add on before we end it. You know, if you're trying to figure it out. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was saying that's key, and you're making money. It's always a good thing to make money.
All right. So the last thing I will say and try to add on to that before we wrap up, you know, if you are seriously considering UX design, but you don't know if it's the right fit, and you don't, you know, maybe you're still kind of muddy on like what is UX design, do your research and like ask people who are currently UX designers, UI designers, visual designers, product designers, what do they love about the job? I can guarantee that the majority of answers has nothing to do with, I can create pretty things. And if that is your answer, I personally am going to say sit and think about it very, very, very carefully on whether or not you want to make the jump. Because to be, at least for me, like in my experience, to be a really thoughtful UX designer, you need to be curious. You need to be curious. You need to not be afraid to ask questions. You need to not be afraid to like push some boundaries, because at the end of the day, like what drives me as a UX designer is that, you know, I just am very happy knowing that like I am improving workflows. I'm improving processes for other people, because I've been on the other side of using really not great internal tools, and it sucks. It sucks so much. And like, that drives me all the time. So I would say, yeah, ask yourself, like, what is it about UX design that draws you? And please do not say like, I just want to make things pretty, because that's not just what a UX designer does. But yeah. All right.
Like
cool.
I said, because a lot more research to anything, and
yes.
like meetings. So
yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. All right, cool. Well, I have taken up so much of your time already. Thank you so much, like seriously, for sitting through this with me. You know, I know that you're a little bit nervous, but you did great. Everyone, please tell Isaiah he did great, and, you know, reach out to him on LinkedIn, all that fun stuff. But, you know, thank you all so much for being here.
Fine. Messages. I like to help people as much as I can, give them all the information and resources. So yeah, I'm not one of those people that don't respond. I like to help people out. So yeah.
I'm waiting for you to be a mentor if you're not a mentor yet. But yeah, I'm sure it'll happen. But yeah, this is recorded for anyone who missed it. It'll be up on our YouTube channel probably by Monday. So if you follow us on social, and if you're not, please do so. You know, help us. We're so close to 10,000 guys on Instagram. Please get us closer. But yeah, either way, this will be on YouTube. So forever, you're gonna live on YouTube forever, Isaiah. Like this is gonna be a thing now.
Oh,
so
man.
It's gonna be great.
Oh man, so people can see how nervous I was. Oh man. So.
Oh my goodness. But yeah, thank you all again so much for being here. We are probably going to do this, again soon. And then, hopefully, whoever's starting, if Isaiah joins us as a mentor, maybe you will have his, lovely, lovely guidance and mentorship to kind of help you with your journey. So yeah, thank you all so much. Happy Friday. Happy weekend, Isaiah. Thank you so much again. Congratulations again. Enjoy going into day 16 of being a married man. So
Yep.
it all goes well.
Guys,
all right,
everybody
everyone.
have a good time.
Yep. Have a great weekend. Thank you.